Woo! Yeah. All right. Any day now. Any day. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dope and Tape Show. This is episode 172. Again, we're going to be giving away a free fire tech course. Just trying to, I got to say this, free fire tech online course. So I don't want to get it, confused, So, we're going to give away that. And we appreciate fire tech allowing us to do that. So all of our people in our community can use fire tech to not just get more knowledge, but also try to, get to the next step of where you want to be in your career. It's huge. And some of those courses are not cheap. Now I think they're definitely worth it. I've taken them. My friends over at Pi Barker, when I was there, I think all of them took fire tech courses to pass their NICET, and everybody loves it. But yeah, like some of I think level 2 for NFPA 13, their course, I think it's like $400. So any online course, you'll have it for free. We'll figure out some kind of question at the end. We never really pre-planned this. We probably should, so it wouldn't be like, you have a question? You have a question?
No, we always put the pressure on the guest. Jeff, ask him a question.
Yeah. And then they're like, what? So today we have Jeff Lewis. He's with VSC. Could you say your title real quick so I don't screw it up?
No, not a problem. Of VP of Technical Workforce Development.
I appreciate that. So Jeff came down and he was speaking at Georgia Fire Sprinkler Association's one of our board meetings, and he was telling me all the amazing things that VSC is doing to improve our industry, and it's on the same lines of what we're trying to do. Promote, get more people into the trades, bring value to our trades, allow us to be an option. Educate the public. So VSC's right there with Dope and Tape, and I had to get Jeff on, and I want to tell you the things that he's doing, but I will not be able to say it as good as Jeff does. And if you don't know a little bit about my story, but I worked at VSC for a while. So my dad was there, and then I got into fire protection, I guess, legally. So I became a W-2 instead of under the table. And my dad was like, you got to go and earn your stripes at Century Fire before you come and see me. He's like, get your NICET, learn some pipe fitting, and then you can come over. So after about a year, my dad stepped down. I don't remember what position he was at in the time in VSC. Then he became my foreman in inspections. So I was with him for 2 years, and that was such a blessing to be able to work beside my dad and learn from him. So huge fan. And Jeff, thank you guys for what you're doing. I love that VSC is supporting all this. I mean, it's time, it's money, it's energy, all this stuff that comes together, and it's not something that you would put as something that's comes lightly, to a company focusing on the industry stuff, not in business. So thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, VSC.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows a commitment that our ownership and our leaders have to the industry. And I kind of refer to it as stewardship. This is a good industry, and it's a great mission. I mean, our mission is, it's life safety, it's job protection, it's historical artifact protection, it's environmental protection. It's all these things bundled into a bunch of goofy guys and gals out there, hanging pipe and, inspecting and testing fire systems. But it boils down to, a stewardship. We have to steward an industry that's been really good to us, and we got to look both frontwards and backwards. It's good to see where we came from, It's good sometimes to look back and say, wow, this is what the industry was, but look at what it is now. But it's also a good time to look forward and say, what are we leaving? What kind of legacy? Who are we bringing in to continue the mission? And that's where VSC is starting to make a significant investment. And actually, it's not just us. We've had some AFSA chapters step in, like the Virginia chapter has definitely been, really involved. Been fun stuff. So, where would you guys like to begin? Let's
Oh
just
my
Hold on,
gosh.
let's begin with
Yeah, I
let's
wanna-
begin with the comments real quick. Joe Saffer says Jeff is a legend. What's
Uh-oh.
up, Big
I owe
Country?
you one,
What's up,
Joe.
Flo?
Legend.
In my own mind.
Yeah, well, let's start with I mean, yeah, there's a lot here
Well,
to chip off,
your
right?
story. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you get started in fire protection?
Right, now see, this is why I relate to high school students so well. I was that student. I was in the 1980s. Okay, in the 1980s, we went college for all. That was where all this started. And if you weren't going to college, I mean, they used to talk about with the VOTEC students, you didn't know what that meant. It sounded like they had something. Is there medicine to cure that? What is that? You were treated as like you were, mentally second rate. And I didn't know. I didn't know to explore stuff. So I was that kid that came out and said, "Okay, I'm going to college." And I started, "What do you take? Business?" I don't know. But I had a love of history. I wasn't doing real well in business, so I had a love of
Yeah.
history. Well, I'll go be a history teacher. But I'll tell you, I was looking for something worthwhile to do with my time, and I became a firefighter. And that's when I got something I could sink my teeth into, and I was like, "Man, this is
You
where
have
I
a
want to
purpose.
be. This is it."
Yeah.
So I transferred. I did it all backwards. I went from a 4-year university. Granted, when I transferred out of there, I was like a tenth of a grade point above academic probation. Okay, I wasn't exactly a stellar student. Transferred over to a technical 2-year degree program in fire protection technology. By the way, graduated with honors, straight A student. I got something to sink my teeth into. Came out, I was still thinking about pursuing a full-time career, fire marshal investigations, that kind of thing, and landed in this industry. And really fell in love with it. I had to stop and think, you know, what do you do with this? I'm like, man, this is really cool. I'm seeing something different almost every day. I was in inspections. I was in inspections before NFPA 25 even was published. So we were out there doing this stuff. We were testing systems. We were going
Don't
on.
What do
age
you
your-
do? You just guess?
Don't
I was
age
like,
yourself
No,
that
you-
I
much,
guess
Joe.
we're supposed to test it like this today. Tomorrow we might
Yeah.
test it like that. We'll see how we
No,
feel.
you used like 13A, 14A, you used all these should documents. And man, it was like the Wild West, man. We were going above ceilings, we were looking at hangers, we were pulling, tape measures on sprinklers. We were having a great time out there. 25 came out, we were kind of like, what is this?
What is yeah?
What is this? So it standardized things and gave us a better purpose. But I was that guy, and I finally, I got in. I started doing this. So I've been in the industry now since '90, and really my entire adult life was, spent, chasing fire and fire protection. And I really came to understand that if you really want to save lives, and for those out there that are doing it two ways, that are in this industry and are still volunteer firefighters or people that come out, we I salute you for doing this, but it really is, you're going to save the lives with the as-built environment, creating as safe of an environment for people to be in, and importantly, to try to control the hazard. And the biggest thing is, can we get people out? If we can control the disaster that's occurring, and we can get people to egress out of the building, then we've really achieved something. But it started getting beyond that. I spent a couple of years in special hazards, and one of my very first projects, was protecting Stradivari violins and rare jade flutes for the Library of Congress. And you talk about, man, dude, it's like a dream project. Are you kidding? So we used Vesda and an FM200 system, and these cases were amazing. They had their own burglar alarm systems and all that stuff on them. But it was like, it's just really, I've gotten to see a lot of different aspects of fire protection and how it impacts people's lives. And it's a really addicting industry to be in, I'll be honest with you. So that's kind of my story. That's where I came from. And so it's been fire. And I went back and finished up a bachelor's degree in 2012. So I'm not anti-degree. But I am kind of anti-education for education purposes. I mean, if you stop and think about it, education is not work history. Education is not necessarily a skill, it's education. And I got a shock when I graduated with my, associate's degree in fire protection technology. Man, that sounds impressive, doesn't it, man? It's associate's degree, fire protection technology. And I came into this industry and people were like, yeah, okay, you need to get an ISET certification. I got to look at an ISET. So I said, what do I need that for? I got a degree. And I began to realize, wait a minute, these industry certifications are extremely important. And they carry a lot of weight, even more weight than degrees in some cases, unless you're a PE. But really, when I looked at the educational requirements and said, well, you know what, only thing that the associate's degree did for me, I don't mean only thing, but one of the things it did for me was it knocked off some of the work history requirements. So I was able to test a little bit sooner. But I really became, got an understanding just exactly what these industry certifications mean and why they're important and why you have to pursue it. And I think that's the significant difference. If you think of our parents' generation, they went to school, they learned a trade, they came out, they worked, they retired. The life expectancy, I think, then was like 70 years old. Now it's 90. And we have a whole different attitude toward work now. We work to learn. We're working to learn new skills, leverage those skills, create new value, and do these things. That's very intriguing to this new generation of young people, this Gen Z, if you want to call them, coming out. They're looking for areas saying, hey, we want to attach to something that has meaning. Well, boy, we got an industry that has some meaning. They want to attach to something where they can see a future. They want to attach to something where you can chart a path. And we have all that. I mean, stop and think about it. I mean, we're multiple trades under a single umbrella. And just if we look at if you look at pipe fitter, and look at all that what that entails. You could be installing, you could be a jack installer for warehouse or distribution, or Bobby and I were talking about, he was installing fire pumps today. Think of being on the service side. You going in doing retrofits or answering calls in the middle of the night because somebody, forklift operators, God, we love them. They just severed something in a warehouse,
helps
or
on the way.
something. So yeah, helps on the way. And I mean, if you stop and think about that, just on that side, just what it means. Okay, what does it mean to be a fitter? There's a lot there. There's troubleshooting. There's complexity of taking a yard full of pipe and putting this jigsaw puzzle together in the ceiling of the building, and have it be right. Have it be installed correctly. That's a serious skill. When you add into some of our our sister or brother trades, the fire alarm industry or the fire extinguisher or the inspections or even design, we're unique. We all know that, but the kids don't know that. We're the only construction trade that has to do their own design work. And, we have this white collar component, not to mention all of the, the staff that comes behind it from accounts receivable and payable. We've got a lot under our umbrella. And if you really stop and think about, well, we can step into a high school or we can step into a community college and say, look, we have all these different career paths within our framework. Let's talk. And honestly, they look at us and go, where have you folks been hiding? Why have we never heard of you before? Why haven't you done this? Well, the industry was blessed in the fact that through birth rate, I guess, if you want to say it, we kept, the son of the son of the son, kept working, or you had people like me that fell into it. My goal is to try to make it a little more intentional. Let's go out there and touch these communities that we haven't been in. Let's reach out to these young people that have never heard of us, and let's show them what we're about. Let's show them what the trade is about. We're not gonna attract all of them, but that's okay. I think right now the stat says that, by the time a person's 34 years old, they would have had, anywhere from 10 to 18 jobs.
Wow.
And that's an 18-month turnover. And that turnover, I call that employee tourism, is what I call it. That's a tourist coming through your locality. And it's costing us millions. It's costing us millions of dollars in this turnover. We've got to be more intentional about how we engage with them. And, there's some tools at our disposal. Internships is a great way to do this. We've learned to do this.
And y'all are doing that, even with underage.
We are. So one of the things we did is we involved our safety department, our risk management department, and of course our HR department. And we really sat down and we had a really serious talk about this and said, look, we need to do something here. So they really sat down took a very intelligent look at the Department of Labor requirements for working with minors. And by the way, there's a wealth of information on probably any state's website. If you go to any state you're located in and pull up the DOL and say working with minors, how can you do this? Schools have information. There's a lot of stuff there. So we really sat down and rewrote our working with minors policy and kind of broke them into 3 different categories. The most stringent category are the ones that you just bring in for summer help that are going to help, file paperwork or, do that type of thing. But the other 2, the CTE students, the ones that are going to come in with an OSHA 10, or the registered youth apprentices, which is the highest tier, they're coming in with OSHA 10 and they're coming in with a DOL card that says, look, there's a lot we can do. We can't drive your company vehicles. I can't work in an excavation or confined, but man, we can be up on ladders. We can run power machines as long as we're supervised. They can do a lot. And we broke it into it. So we, last year, went out and hired our first juniors. We hired juniors in high school in 3 different programs out of 2 schools in 2 states. One was electrical, came in as a fire alarm tech, and 2 turned out to be design. And worked them for a summer. They went back to their schools, came back with the paperwork, and we got them registered as youth apprentices, where they went to school for 1 day, and they came to work for us the other. And they are now getting close to their graduation. Very proud of them, and we're probably, and I would dare say, they may stay with us, and just start their career path that way. And then we got a surprise. A school reached out to us, high school, and I said, "Hey, look, we're looking for interns. We're looking for a place to put some high school students. It's a 60-hour, excuse me, that's wrong. It's a 70-hour unpaid internship." And it was a funny school. I think I got this right. It's like the School of Academic Studies at Colonial Beach High School or something. It came out of Virginia. I may not have that title correct. So I was kind of scratching my head. I was like, what is that? And the director of the program said, well, basically what we do is we take the student and their interest and we learn about the legalities of it. In other words, we look at, all the things that surround it. I was kind of like, wow. And so she goes, well, we got a young man who's interested in fire prevention and we got a young lady that's interested in engineering. Okay. So we took the young man that's interested in fire prevention, we put him with our inspection team, and the young lady we put in our design department. So one of the things we did require is that they have OSHA 10. School pays for that, by the way. So the school went ahead and gave them 10 hours off their 70, for going through the OSHA 10. So now they're on us, and they're coming. We have those 2 youth interns right now working. So we're proof of concept is there. We can do it. We've learned. We'll learn a little bit more from it. We'll get some feedback from the students when it's done. We'll get some feedback from our youth apprentices when they kind of finish out their time with us, and we'll tweak it. But I really think the sooner we get started with the students, the better off we're going to be.
That is amazing, Jeff. I love it. You're a great talker, by the way. Very great. Appreciate you having on. Everybody watching, thank you guys for being here. Please hit the like, subscribe button. I'm really into this. I come from a vocational school. It was actually called CTE, the Center for Technical Education. I told you before this, I had to go through the plumbing shop, and I kind of want to take it back a little bit. And so you talked about you went to vocational school. Did you
No,
say
I
that?
did not. I went to a traditional high school.
Oh, you went to
what VOTEC was.
Oh, VOTEC.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it almost back in that time it wasn't CTE, it was VOTEC, and
VOTEC,
people kind of
okay.
said it out of the side of their mouths like, oh, it's VOTEC, and like I said, what is that? They have something, like I said, is there medicine for that? Will they be all right? So now it's, man, I tell you what, you walk into these career and technical education centers, and some of these things are fabulous. I mean, you walk in and go, wow. Schools have made significant investments. And by the way, there are a lot of schools out there that have learned it's not a college for all, one approach.
Yeah.
And these
Right.
are the school systems we need to get into. But they're fighting a battle too. And
I'd like to start pushing the school that I came from. The shop that I was in was plumbing and pipe fitting. That's what it said on the door.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to go down there, bang on that door, and see if we get some sprinkler
That's
heads,
it.
get some sprinkler heads in there, right?
That's it. So, one of the things is, I didn't understand this until I've gotten into it. I was always going, okay, let's go after the high school students because that's who we're going to recruit, right? They're going to come in, they're going to work for us. And the schools kept saying, hey, would you come and talk to the middle school students? Can you do this? I'm like, what am I doing? I now understand it. One of it is the career and technical education programs have to recruit. So they're actually recruiting the kids out of the middle school, saying, "Hey, this is a pathway for you to come." But finally, it hit my thick skull. It's the parents. There are parents out there that cannot conceive of a world where their kids can succeed without a degree. They just can't see it. And they're not evil. They want what's best for their kids. But they came up like me, college for all, you go to school and any degree is good. And that's not the case anymore.
No,
The
that's I
value,
mean, me and
yeah,
Bobby, we both don't have degrees.
no. And frankly, what handles, for me, it's the NICET certifications, it's the trades.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I tell people all the time, they're not mutually exclusive. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, like, if you look at what went on in California with the fires, and you look at what took place with the floods and the disasters and stuff in Tennessee and the bridge south, it's going to take people that know how to build to go in there and rebuild it. It's not going to be it's going to be people that know how to lay mortar, set bricks, pour foundation, run plumbing lines, nail. But it's going to be people that know how to build that's going to rebuild those communities. It's not going to be, politicians talking metaphorically or anything else. It's going to be the builders
You're
that are
right.
going to go in there and fix it.
You're very right. Let's see. We got some comments here. Chandler says, "Talk with the fire explorers." I think he said this before. The
Yeah.
fire explorers. That's where kids learn how to be firefighters, I believe, right? You heard of that?
Yeah, so there could be two things depending upon where he's talking about. Maybe he can give us some clarification. Fire explorers could be part of the scouting program. If they come out of scouting program, they can go into some of the career exploration. Fire explorers is one. There's air explorers, there's a couple of others. And yes, they learn about careers in the fire protection. Then there are some schools in some states that have actual fire academies within they call them fire academies within the career and technical education side. And they are good places for us to go into. But I will tell you, we tend to recruit more out of the trade kids, the kids that are in there, even if it's carpentry or if it's HVAC or even electrical. These are the kids that are more geared to a construction trade. And when we present them with some of ours, they become interested in saying, "Hey, that's cool." So they already have a certain amount of core. They know how to take measurements, they know how to do these things. So again, it's all, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. If the school is willing to talk with you and they have kids that are interested, there's no wrong place for you to go. I'm gonna be honest with you. If we're looking for young people, schools are where we're gonna find them. But I've just found that we have found more in the career and technical education, obviously, because those kids have already wanted that
They want the
pathway.
trades.
They
Yeah, they
already
want
made
the
up their
trades.
mind that they're going to
Yeah.
go in that avenue somehow.
What's up, Brant? Thanks for joining. Yo, Chad. What's up, Chad? Chad says, "Yo, this guy's well spoken. He's got me hyped about the future in fire protection. This industry is rad. There's a place for everyone." I mean, how many? We talk about it. We should get a number. We should try to work on a number on how many career paths are there within this industry. I mean, Jeff's already named like 12 of them.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
and
agree. We should.
Like you could go around and be like, "Hey, there's 20 different things you could do in this industry."
and the cool thing too is like you can go do something, and then if you don't like it, you can go back to doing what you were doing or doing something else. Because I've done that. I've moved up, and I was like, screw this. Give me a truck. I'm going back into inspections.
Yeah, right.
There's levels. There's
Mhm.
No,
levels to
you're
this.
exact.
What's up, Garrick? Thanks for joining. You guys hear us and see us all right? We're running off the hotspot. I got it floating up there. Seems like it's doing pretty good. Flo says, "Chad, hell yeah, we're just getting started. Thanks for paving the way, boys." Got a lot of good interaction on Instagram. I mean, I still think that that's a good spot.
Yeah.
I got a lot of people that are reaching out, at least a couple a week. How do I get into the industry, or how do I find it? I usually just ask them where they're from. Just get on Google and Google fire sprinkler, and like there's gonna be a company that's near you. And go apply. That's usually what I tell them.
Yeah.
Just tell them I want a job.
That's it. I want a job. Teach me. You learn in the
Boom,
field.
done.
Gee.
I wanted to tell you, Jeff, and I might have, but so you are now 172, episode 172, right? So outside of, let's say, 171 episodes, only two people have actually applied for fire protection. all the others, they were brought in by
Hmm.
somebody.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. That is
Yeah.
really pretty interesting.
And but it's scary on my end because I mean you can see it as like, okay, people are, we have that ability to bring people in and give people another shot, but also I think it's scary because then they're older
Mhm.
and typically, I don't want to say typically, but we could be looked at as the last option
Yeah,
because they're like, hey, I need a job. Well, they're hiring over here at this fire protection company. Just go in and apply. I know, I know Billy that's over there. He'll get you a job.
Oh, my uncle did
That's what it
this, or your
is.
dad did this, or your grandfather, or you just knew someone, right?
right.
K-Town
Yeah.
says we need guys badly up here in Ontario. Now, North American Fire Protection's hiring right now. Like business is booming. Like we're trying to pick up people. I think a lot of people are hiring. Daryl Rich says congratulations, Brian, on your big day.
Thank you, thank you. I'm getting married next week, actually.
Oh, cool,
Yeah,
man. All
yeah.
right.
So we will not have a show next week or the week after. So 2 weeks we will not have a show because I'm gonna be in Colombia, getting ready for the wedding, being with my family, and then I'm gonna take my family to like a beach vacation in Santa Marta, Colombia, and then just enjoy it. I'm not
There
gonna
you
bring
go.
my laptop. I'm just gonna be there.
That's what you need to
Good for
do.
you,
Just
dude.
chill
And
back,
so that
enjoy
means our
your
next
thing,
show is
and
what, the 17th? We should
Let's see
get
here.
we
Yeah,
should
I
get
get back on the 14th, so that would be the 17th.
Florencio. You're up, big guy. You trying to go live with us on the 17th?
It's been
I
two
know you.
years, Flo. Come on, man.
Oh wow, Ryan's
You gotta
Ryan's
get
got
in here.
Ryan's got some numbers. There are 500,000 union plumbers in America and 15,000 in fire sprinkler fitting. We are an oddball career that needs people everywhere. That's it. I worked for a
that
company that did one of the first companies I worked for in the union. They did plumbing, they did pipe fitting, they did HVAC, and they did fire sprinkler. And everybody had the same name on their shirt.
Dang.
And the company would bid. The way that they would do it is they would say if you get the bid for the plumbing, the HVAC, and the pipe fitting, basically be the sprinkler. And so we were the redheaded stepchild. We would get the worst carts that the company had, all like the hand-me-down tools. But it was pretty cool. Like you do a high rise and you basically the whole company's just there. Every trade is the same company. And we
Okay. Yeah,
and
that's
the
cool.
the plumbers would have 50 and the pipe fitters would have 50 and you'd have like 5 sprinkler guys. You guys know how it is.
Yeah.
There'd be all these
yep.
huge crews, and then there'd be like
The GC's like, where's everybody else at?
there'd be three sprinks on site. Thank you for the numbers, Ryan. I like that. I
Yeah.
like statistics. Let me know,
Well, if you like
Florencio.
So could
statistics,
you,
let me
Yeah, hit
yeah,
yeah,
us.
let
yeah,
me
give us some, Jeff.
What do you
let me
got?
let me let me throw a ratio at you here, Bobby. So I want you to think in your listeners. And by the way, everything I'm saying here is nothing new. There have been enough people out here beating this drum, but I want you to think this ratio, and this is very important, is 1 to 7. This is a very important ratio. 1 to 7. What that means is for every one job that's created in our economy that requires a master's degree or higher, there are 2 jobs created in our economy that require some type of bachelor type degree, professional type degree. But there are 7 jobs created in our economy that require a trade certificate or maybe a 2 year degree. 1 to 7. And that has been the same in our economy since the 1950s, and it will continue to be in the same in our economy until 2050. But what we've done in the 1980s by pushing everybody into one college, one path for all, is we created a degree inflation where there are people getting degrees and going into jobs that never required a degree. It doesn't require a degree to do. And right now, the Department of Education and Labor states that for every 100 bachelor degree recipients, there are only 57 jobs in the economy that require that level of education. So
Mm.
you have, and think about it, we put the cart before the horse. Think about it, how many times, and I'm guilty of it. I talk to you, hey, where are you going to college? Cool. We don't talk about what are you going to do? Kids go to high school, they pick a college, they pick a degree. They don't start looking for a job in it until the time they graduate. That's all backwards.
Mm.
Career exploration needs to start much earlier and align young people with where they want to end up. And if that requires a degree, then by all means, go get it. If you're going to look at it, I don't know, all the government protest and the payoff of student loans, I got tickled at one account that got relayed to me, and I thought it was ridiculous. I had to look it up, and it was so ridiculous it was true. So back in 2011, during the Occupy Wall Street craze, there was an individual that got interviewed. He was really upset that the government wasn't going to pay off his student loan. So he had amassed $35,000 in student loans. So this guy had a job. Maybe it wasn't the most ideal job, but he had a job. It had benefits and all that stuff. So he decided to quit his job, go back to college, get a master's degree in puppetry. And he was angry that the government would not pay off his master's. I know what you guys are thinking. Come on, a master's degree in puppetry, you can get a job with that anywhere. I mean, come on, there was a dime a dozen. Why can't this guy fight? No, I'm joking. No, I'm not joking about the fact that this guy, got a master's degree in puppetry and had $35,000 in debt that he thought the government should pay off, we as taxpayers. But it's really like, okay, what were you planning on doing with that? What job were you going to score with that?
What's the job at the Avenue?
Yeah, Sesame Street's full, man. I don't know. In the back in the 60s and 70s, you probably could have got a job with Rankin Bass. I mean, they were doing all kinds of stuff with puppetry.
Right.
But, I'm not trying to make fun of this individual, but I am saying that, you need to do a little bit of career exploration here before you go choosing, a direction. And this notion that any degree, any training, no, field of study is very important. And for some kids, coming out, go into a trade, and then they might sit there and go, you know what, I want to be a project manager. So they go and they get training to be a project manager. Or they sit back and go, you know what, I want to move up. So I'm going to go to my local community college or something, and I'm going to take some classes on business management or how to read, profit and loss statements or business finance, and be able to move up into the management and be better at running, a division or a company or whatever. These are very real career paths. This is a very real, notion of what to do. And then you have people that came up through the trades and run a company and they just knew how to do this. They understood the money side. They understood the people side of the business and could run a very, very successful business, have done so. I don't know if you guys saw the Wall Street Journal. What is it, just maybe about a month or two ago, that basically said that the Gen Z millionaires are going to come out of the trades. Let that sink in. The Gen Z millionaires are going to come out of the trades. The trades are aging out. They're going to run their own companies. They're going to set these things up, and they're going to come out of the trades, and they're going to be the new millionaires. It always reminds me of that South Park episode where everybody was outside the Home Depot trying to find a maintenance man to fix their house. Hey, I'll trade you some geology if you come fix my stove. If you haven't seen that episode, it's hilarious. It is a riot, man. I'll trade you some geology, man, if you'll come fix my oven.
Yeah, that's so good. I gotta watch that.
Yeah, I gotta look that up too.
Oh, that's good. Jim Hansen had to start somewhere. Would have been a terrible fitter. K-Town says, yo, Jim Hansen had to start somewhere. Would have been a terrible fitter.
Well, good point. A good point. I don't disagree. I wonder if he started $35,000 in debt.
Yeah. I love it. So what are you working on like right now? What's your big thing? Where's your next?
Okay, all right, so one of the things we did, the Virginia chapter of AFSA, we got together, a couple of years back during COVID and said, look, the number one problem we're all facing is we don't have people. So we began to take a very serious, hard look at how do we do this. We decided we're going to make that our next gen initiative. AFSA does a really great next gen initiative. We just decided that we checked with National, say, hey, look, is this going to interfere with anything? They said, no, that's fine. You can define it that way. So we went out and out of desperation, we had our own career fair. We had it at a hotel in a ballroom type setting. I think we had 12 students come through. It was awful, for the first shot, but we had 2 school districts come through, and one of them was Henrico County, Virginia. And I remember the director of CTE came out and he looked at me and he goes, you know what, we can work together. He said, he said, I'm going to make an ask. And he said, I'm going to make a promise. He said, the ask is we will work with you if you work with us. But one of the things we want is we want this career fair on our property. That he said, this is great career fair. So then we started working with them. He took us over to an old shopping mall in Henrico County that basically the county was taking over a part of it, and they were going to create a adult education center in it. And they said, we're looking for partners. And basically, because the county owned it or leased it, it became a construction lab. So they were working high school students in commercial construction. I mean, these kids are in there doing demolition. They're in there putting up drywall. They're in there running electrical wiring. They're doing all these things. So we partnered with them. 10 of our companies stepped up. We did 260 add and relocates as a donation, thanks to fire sprinklers donated to us by Victaulic and design team. And we worked with students and we helped build out this Regency Mall adult education facility, which is pretty amazing. So now we have a place. They kept the flavor of the mall, kind of Mac Baton, who's the director of CTE there. He kind of had this philosophy. He said, this used to be where people came and shop for shoes and clothes. Now they come and shop for a career. So now you have people in there, getting, their GED, or they're getting their English as a second language or whatever. Why are they doing that? They're doing it to get a better job. So the Virginia chapter has this fantastic storefront where we can advertise careers. So then we were participating in a podcast, and one of our members, a fellow by the name of Jason Gill, who's with Cruz and Gregory, he made this great statement when we were participating. He goes, if you think about most trades, people see it in their homes. They know what an electrician does. They kind of know what a drywall hanger does. But he goes, because fire sprinklers aren't in homes, people don't know who we are. So it turns out that Henrico County builds a home. The students, the construction trade students, build a house every 1.5 to 2 years. They sell it on the open market. And these are beautiful homes. I mean, these are beautiful homes. So they just finished house number 20. So they've done for 20 years. They have enough, they have enough lots to do 50 to 70 more. So I approached Mac and said, hey, Mac, why don't we put fire, hey, Mac, why don't we put fire sprinklers in this house? Hey, let's do it. So with house number 20, we got donations. We got people. We worked with summer camp kids. These were kids that are thinking about going into career and technical ed. We provided a foreman. Some of these kids had never held tools before, and we put a home fire sprinkler system in the house.
That's so cool.
In every house,
incredible.
Every house moving forward will. Every house moving forward. In fact, house number 21, foundations are poured. It's going to have a fire sprinkler system in it. So it's promoting the fire sprinkler industry. It's introducing kids to the trade. These are, to our knowledge, it's the first one ever been done with high school students. In fact, some of these were very young, like 9th graders who hadn't really even moved into the CTE program yet. So it was quite an accomplishment. We were very proud of it, but it shows how easy it really is to do a home fire sprinkler system. It got attention. It got the attention of the governor. It got the attention of the NFPA, the Home Fire Sprinkler, Coalition. It got a lot of people's attention. They're saying, how did you do this? Well, it just took 2 people to look at each other and say, yes, let's tackle this. And Viking Supply Net, who donated all the pipe and the sprinklers, and General Air, our friends at General Air, who donated the pump and tank because we couldn't tie into the existing water supply wasn't sufficient. So with their help and some volunteer, foremen, we did it in 4 trips. We could only work with the kids between like 9 in the morning and 12 in the afternoon. So in 4 trips, we had the whole system put in. And the foreman stood back and let the kids do it. In other words, they just showed them. It was a show and you do. And so we're doing the ribbon cutting on April 29th. We were hoping to get the governor there, but he's tied up. But it looks like we will have the Secretary of Labor there, and maybe a couple of elected officials, school board and all that, to make a really big deal out of this. The fire department made a big deal out of it. And really the building department sat back and said, this is actually a really great example of how schools, the building departments, and trade associations can work together and not only teach the kids about an industry, but actually provide something that's better. And our kind of catchphrase became, because we used the students that were in the printing program to print up the banners for the house to advertise what we're doing, and the kids all got T-shirts. And we had the print shop. These were high school students doing that. And our buzzword was kind of like, our students building safer communities. And, they had it on the back of their t-shirts. We had it up on the banner out in front of the house. And next year we'll put a QR code on it so people can scan it and get all this data about, the value of home fire sprinklers and just what these students are doing. It was quite an accomplishment. Then that led, I remember Mac invited me to come over and look at a high school that was under renovation. We walked into a rundown looking wood shop, and he goes, "Let's make this a fire protection lab. What do you think?" And he showed me a picture of the lab that was in Fairfax County at the fire department, which is it's a fabulous lab up there in their fast lab. He said, "Let's do that here." Okay, they got a change order. Went in there, took this ragamuffin lab, cut the floors out, put drainage and stuff in it. Every sprinkler manufacturer, because we have such a great industry. I mean, we really, our manufacturers in this industry are amazing people. Every manufacturer donated valves and equipment and pipe and fittings. In the first year students, we had 3 students sign up for this program to kind of help pilot it. They have completely tricked out a fully functional fire sprinkler lab at a high school level. It's got a wet room in it where you can set off fire sprinklers. They can actually see them spray. We'll be able to isolate valves, do dry valves, wet systems, whatever. All this equipment was donated. Looks fantastic. It's almost, the sprinkler side of it's almost finished. We got some electrical wiring and stuff that the electrical students will come in and do. We'll wire up a fire alarm panel soon and pull all the devices back. But this is at the high school level. And by the way, we have 7 students now signed up for next year's class, and we still have about 6 months to recruit. So Henrico has been a wonderful partner. And by the way, we've had now our 3rd career fair. We started 4 years ago. We've had our 3rd career fair at their property at Regency Mall. We've attracted hundreds of students. This last time, we actually cut it back a little bit because what they did, instead of just kind of using a shotgun approach, they screened the students. In other words, students that had an intent and interest or fell into a comparable program. So instead of having close to 300 students, we had 180 students come through, but these were highly engaged students. They came in and all of our member companies that were there and talked with the kids, so the engagement level was huge. These kids asked intelligent questions, were very interested. So this can be done. And by the way, this is just one school district. We're also doing stuff in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, with the Chesapeake chapter. That's really cool. They've been a great supporter. We're going and doing things in Goochland County, and City of Richmond is inviting us in, Hanover County. There's just, kind of once you start, I mean, that's just Virginia. We just did our company in Raleigh, our Raleigh team just did a standpipe using students in the fire protection program for Iredell County schools. Turns out I went to Guilford Tech with them. We didn't recognize each other at first, but come on, it's been 30 years and neither one of us has as much hair as we used to, and there's more of it.
Right.
We're a little bigger than we used to be. So anyway, 30 some years ago, we were at Guilford Tech together, in the fire program, and he's now teaching in their fire program. He goes, "Look, he says, we would love to have a standpipe out here in our training, facility. Can you guys help us?" "Sure, but we want to work with your students to do it." He goes, "Fine." So we donated the time and went in there and took the students down there, and the students installed a dry standpipe. Now they can train on it for firefighting practice, but now they've put it in from a fitter stand. And one of the young men looked, he goes, "You know what? That's kind of cool. I want to talk to you guys. I want to learn more about this. I think this is what I want to do." So that's what it's all about. We've got to make it hands-on. We got to get career exploration, and we got to be creative and just get in there and say, "Hey, look, how can we work with the students that we have in programs that already exist, and how can we introduce them to our industry?" So it's just about being creative. That's all it is.
Man, you're doing a lot right now. I love it. I got the
It's
chills. I got the chills when you told me about them ripping up the floor and making a flow lab in a wood shop. That's
Yeah,
that's
dude, it's
amazing.
amazing.
I wish we could do that in every vocational school. K-Town says you hear about the
I
nightclub
would like
fire
to go
in
up there and do a show.
North
Come on.
Macedonia. Didn't you post about that, Brian? The nightclub fire in Macedonia?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The bad one, huh?
It was bad. It
Yeah.
was bad. And it's not just fire. Like these nightclubs have problems with egress.
It's dark.
And like
Yeah, it was
it's dark.
Just like
there's hidden doors. There's really only one entrance and exit, and then there's tons of people.
K-Town says it reminds him of the one in Rhode Island. That was
Yep.
another bad
That was
one.
a big one.
The Station nightclub, same
So
thing.
you know the life safety code is written such that if you think about it, if you compress people in less than 22 inches of space, and you try to shove too many people in through a door, you'll block up a door literally with bodies. And that's what happened at, the fire in Rhode Island. And unfortunately, we saw it graphically on the video that was released for a while. And you saw what happened when one person falls down. Once they fall down, you literally can choke and exit. So that's why, you know, the life safety code and the egress standards and the IBC and stuff are written the way that they are, is to keep that 22 inches per person and keep that width and number of exits available. In some cases, O'Brien, you got a point. We don't maintain situational awareness. I go into a building, I'm looking for a way. I'm spotting where my secondary exits are, but that's because that's the world I live in. And maybe my secondary exit is I'm picking up this chair and throwing it through that window and following it out into the parking
Yeah.
lot.
Damn right. I'm the same
But
way.
a lot of people, I mean, you look, you're in a concert, you're dancing, it's loud music, there are light effects. There may or may not be alcohol or other type of substances involved that are dimming your, ability to respond to the situation. It all adds up to, that's the one place where you really need to make sure you have your egress width and, proper number of exits, available, and people trained to direct people to get the heck out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad when something like that happens.
It is. It's terribly sad.
We want to, anytime y'all are doing something, y'all are leading the pack. And I think the more we make this common, of like VSC's doing this, VSC's doing this, VSC's doing this, I'm hoping that other contractors and manufacturers will start following in your footsteps, even though they are pretty big footsteps, but
Well, like I said, I mean, we've got a lot
getting
of help.
started.
Yeah, in Virginia, it's the association. We've got a really great board. We've got, I mean, if you look at it, it's VSC, it's Summit, it's ACI, it's Cruz and Gregory, it's Cavalier, and I'm probably leaving somebody out. Eagle Fire. I'm still probably leaving out a couple of people. And if I do, and if you're listening, I apologize. But it really is. It's that group. It's a group of board of directors and companies that are willing to step up and say, "Hey, we'll shoulder load. We just want an opportunity to get there and recruit." Ferguson Fire and Fab has been fantastic. I mean, in fact, they donated a rigid 300 machine to the Spring Lab. They paid for it, bought it, and donated it fully tricked out for the students to use. So, Viking and Reliable, and we have such a great industry, and we don't realize it because we're part of it, right? This is just what we know. We
Right.
need. This is how they operate. But I'm hearing from educators, like guys like Mac, that are coming to our conference. They come and they participate, and they said, this isn't a typical industry. They said, you guys, you can set aside your competitive differences for a while and go do something for the common good. And we can, whether it's doing this in a school to recruit, or people donating their time to put in a fire sprinkler system to protect, some kind of a group home, or a charity golf tournament where we come together for burn survivors, and something, a burn center to raise funds. We have a good-hearted industry, and sometimes we lose sight of that in our day-to-day competitiveness and our day-to-day running our businesses. But this is a tremendous industry, and ultimately, at the end of the day, there's a lot of good people in it. Not all of them. Yeah, we all know a few,
Bad
but for the
eggs.
most part, this is a good industry. Yep. But for the most part, this is a good-hearted, industry where people care, and they care about the mission. And that's what we want to build. We want to build a culture where we get people in that will carry it on, not just carry it on, but maybe even advance it. I kind of look at
Yeah.
our industry now, and this is just kind of my take. In the 1980s, we were dealing with a lot of stuff when it dealt with fire protection coming out of the 1970s and the America Burning Report and all that stuff. We shifted from, wood and wool and all that stuff to all these hydrocarbons and, synthetic carpets and furniture. And then, man, these houses were burning, people were dying. And we were able to lower the death rate. Man, when I started as a firefighter, there were still guys that wouldn't wear an SCBA in a burning house. I mean, you wouldn't even think about that now with all the toxins. We had to
No, you're
remind
right.
guys and say, there's so many toxins in there. But our turnout gear advanced. The turnout gear, the turnouts that a firefighter's wearing today compared to what we were wearing in the 80s is different. We still had nylon straps on our SCBAs. They'd melt off of you if you got in too hot. But we went a long ways, but now I'm looking at we have green energies, we have lithium batteries, we have a whole new set of challenges that we're facing. It's kind of like the 1980s again. We're going to rise to those challenges. We're going to figure them out. We're going to beat them. But now's a great time to be in this industry because we've got a whole new set of fire protection and life safety challenges being put in front of us. We have engineers that are out there educating themselves on the hazards, their engineering solutions, and we can be a part of the fix. We can once again lower, the fire losses and the deaths in fire by doing this. It's an exciting time to be in this industry. It really is.
It really is, and we're
Well, we feel it. We're excited.
we need to help, and we're on the helping you with the next gen and just recruiting new people, young people, and even if they're not young people, even if you're older and you want to get into the industry, because that happens too. People
It does.
choose this
It
as a
does.
second career. They realize it's a great career, and it might be 30 or 40, and there's room for you here. We should
There's a lot of
give away a course.
That's all right.
Let's give away a course. Jeff, do you have a
You guys hear us?
question that we can ask?
All right, so it's got to be some kind of a fire protection question, I guess.
Or whatever you want it to be.
Oh man, come on, you're putting me on the spot.
I know. That's why I was like, we need to talk about this before we do it.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. So Florencio said he may be working on that night, but he's gonna keep us posted. A couple guys said it was choppy. I moved it. Now they say it's better. Whenever Brian puts me on the spot for a question, I don't even ask something sprinkler related. I make them spell my name.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing. The station nightclub fire was one that really piqued my interest. Firefighters at the time and just started in the industry. Yeah, it was. I don't suggest it,
How
but I
about
watched
this?
those videos. Yep.
What was the outside of 9/11, not counting 9/11, can anyone out there state what the worst building fire in U.S. history was? Not counting 9/11. What was the worst building fire in U.S. history?
I think I know the state that it's in. I think I know what you're talking about.
Everybody.
Let's see if I'm right.
I got that Jeopardy music going. Make this real intense,
Yeah.
They're all going to Google real quick.
Everybody's Googling it, man.
Yeah.
All the viewers just dropped.
You think we could can we get you a dope and tape flag like what Bobby has behind him for that school?
Absolutely.
School?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I got my flag here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
So
I'm
do
gonna
you-
we're gonna
the
go with
answers yet,
another.
Bob?
We're gonna go with another. I'm gonna get another order of these soon. We owe some people. We got Chicago coming in.
It was in Chicago. They're exactly right. Did they state what building it was?
No, they just said Chicago. P. Rictus.
It wasn't. It was in Chicago. Look, y'all can
The
be
building
the
name,
judge.
guys.
I see Florencio too, but Florencio always wins. He's already got it. You got to complete your ones you already won. Get me a flag for my van. I got you, kid. All right. I'll send you a flag.
That'd be cool.
They keep texting me all these deals. Are we looking for an exact building? What's the exact building, people? Come on.
Whoever threw in Chicago, they are correct. It did occur in Chicago.
Ryan says Baltimore
I'll
fires.
give them a hint. I'll give them a hint. It was in a theater.
Ooh. I'm gonna cue the Jeopardy music again. I like
There
it.
you go. So I think the death toll depends on what source you look at. It's somewhere around 692 people, mostly women and children.
692 people. Oh my goodness. That's so
That's a
many.
bad. That's a bad fire. What do you got, guys?
Happened
This
during
is
a
Yeah.
this is for a online fire tech course. Um, what was the largest disaster? The one in Chicago.
Yeah, largest building fire outside of 9/11. Until 9/11 had occurred, this was the most catastrophic building fire in U.S. history.
Come on, guys, Google it up.
Yeah, 692 dead, mostly women and children, because it occurred during the matinee.
Big
Oh, that's
Country says New
terrible.
York City. Ryan says Baltimore fires.
Nope.
K-Town
Baltimore
says
fire. Baltimore conflagration in 1908, I believe it was 1904, 1908.
they're
Yeah.
saying 1904 Baltimore, LA fires, Baltimore
Yep.
theater, Chicago theater.
It is in Chicago. So I mean, if y'all want to, you guys can decide whether you accept that.
Yeah.
Whether
I
it's
mean,
Chicago theater. I mean, that's it. But I mean, the name of it, I'll go ahead and give it. The name of it was the Iroquois Theater.
okay.
And it was like I say, 692. Goes back to what you were talking about, Brian, hidden exits. But I'll tell you one major fire protection, a significant fire protection device that came out of that was the panic hardware, the Von Duprin panic bar hardware, where you push against the door and the door will swing open. That was created. The guy had bought tickets to go to that show because he had an extra day in Chicago, wound up being able to get a late train home, went back to Indiana, picked up the newspaper the other day, the next day, and thought, man, I would have been in that. I would have been in that fire. And it so troubled
Mm.
him that he sat down with two other people and he designed the Von Duprin panic hardware bar. Check out their website, Von Duprin. They still make panic bars today, and they got a great video about it, the Iroquois fire, and how they came up with the panic exit hardware bar.
Yeah,
Wow.
Joe Saffer says ask Jeff what started the Chicago fire.
Well, it depends on whether you believe, the common thought was of Mrs. O'Leary's cow, but actually
What?
people have disproved that. So yeah, they thought it was Mrs. Yeah, for a long time they said it was Mrs. O'Leary's cow.
And so what is your theory?
Well, it started somewhere in the shanty town, but I mean, you have to understand they were facing high winds. They were facing, forest fire type of configuration. Eyewitnesses said that really, they saw a couple of drunks, hanging around the area where the fire started. There's always a drunk. There's always
Yeah.
somebody doing, oh, do something. So, but I mean, there for a long time in popular culture, it was always Mrs. O'Leary's cow, but that was actually proven to be completely made up by false media, folks. Yep, the
Poor Mrs.
newspaper men
O'Leary.
admitted they made it up. They even the picture of Mrs. O'Leary and her cow, that was actually an actress and a stand-in cow. So I mean, it was all a false story. So more than likely, it was a couple of guys that drank too much and burned down, 3/4 of the city.
Oh, that's awful.
Oh man.
High winds and it just it
That
just
is
cut
awful.
through. I think I'm gonna go with
Yep.
P. Rictus, the first one to say Chicago after Florencio.
Okay.
Right?
Congratulations.
He was the first Chicago I seen. So P. Rictus. I don't know. DM me on Instagram so I get your real name.
I'll get it. He's my friend. I'll text him.
Yo, I haven't talked about Bobby. Oh yeah, yo, chill with the 2.0. That's a fast hour right there.
Man, it was a
Yeah, it was
fast one.
quick.
We're definitely gonna have to do this
Thank you
again,
so
Jeff.
much for coming on.
You're a
Yeah.
natural talker. You did great, and I feel like you got a lot more to say.
Yeah, I tell you what, guys, let's plan on you guys. Why don't you reach out to me again? Why don't you plan on coming up to the Sprinkler Lab? Talk with folks in Henrico County, see what's going on, and maybe meet some of the kids.
Yeah, for sure. We would love that. We'll bring some hats and some
All right.
flags
I
and
think
a
that'd be
bunch of
good.
stickers and everything.
Man, come
And
on.
if Arco can help in any way, I know that one company donated a machine. Like if you feel like Arco can help, let me know.
I'd love to talk about it, Brian. Honestly, just reach out to me, sometime after the show. Like I say, I'm sure. Look, that there are more places where we can go and more things we can do, and I'm sure there are ways that people can get involved. If there are contractors out there, the low hanging fruit, start with a career fair. get in there and meet the kids and start talking about our industry. If you can get in front of classrooms, get in there. Don't be afraid to do it. Get in and talk about it. It's just we need to expand. We need to show. One of the funniest events we ever did, we got invited to one of those truck shows. And I'm thinking, what in the world are we going to do with this? I mean, it was all kinds of cool stuff. There's bomb disposal trucks and fire trucks and all that stuff. So we parked a
Oh,
sprinkler
that's cool.
truck out there, and we set up a tent at the end. We had a working fire alarm panel. We had so many kids over there, and I'm like, they're like, well, that's just a truck. They said, this stuff's cool. I was like, okay, they had so many kids down there. Of course, the school was like, yeah, thanks for showing them all how to set off a fire alarm system. They said,
Right.
get back. They said, we're going to be, all our kids are going to be out in the parking lot, man. They're going to immediately walk in, pull that manual pull station, and be out there. I said, hey,
Now at least
just
they know.
that's what we said for you.
That's awesome. All right, Jeff, we really appreciate you.
All right,
Appreciate you
guys,
coming on the
thank
show.
you.
Appreciate what you're doing for the industry, and just really appreciate you.
All right, guys. Hey, listen,
Yeah,
good night,
thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, see ya.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button.